Hello. Have you ever found yourself hesitating before making a decision? And sometimes does that hesitation turn into a full-on roadblock? Is your indecision something that comes from fear, perfectionism, or a lack of trust in your own judgment? Welcome to the show. Today, Tracy and myself are going to be discussing all about indecision, aren't we, Tracy?
We are indeed.
Where it comes from, what you can do to overcome your indecision, and we're going to leave you, most importantly, with some actionable tips that you can implement to help you with decision making. Tracy.
Let's get started.
Well, let's get started. I wanted to firstly say, I saw a fantastic story that you put up yesterday, Tracy, which had an amazing statistic on it. Do you want to just start by going over that?
Yeah, so according to my research, we, on a basic level, we're not talking about life-changing events, on a basic level, we have up to 35,000 decisions that we make every single day.
That's phenomenal. That is incredible.
It's no wonder I'm always tired.
It's no wonder I'm always tired. And I then went on from that and found out that of course includes conscious and subconscious decisions.
Yeah.
And that now I think this is quite low, but I found a statistic that said out of that 35,000, 227 were about food. I think it meant to say 2,227 were about food.
Yeah.
That's a lot, right? That's a lot of decision making about food.
Yeah.
Just thought I'd throw that in there.
Yeah.
That's quite interesting.
It's no wonder.
No wonder.
Myself and so many people, it's the worst thing in the world when the kids go, "What's for dinner?" Just like, let the world open up and just eat me, because I get asked it every single day, and so many times I'm like, I don't know. Well, I would say that's how I used to be. Now I'm quite organised and I do meal prep, but I have to consolidate all that into one day when I have to do the shopping, which not so great, but yeah.
And that's interesting because I wanted to just quickly touch on, and I've talked about this a lot in the past, which is decision-making fatigue. And now that you've revealed that statistic about 35,000 decisions a day, it's no wonder, is it, that by the end of the day, we can have decision-making fatigue. And when it comes to advising my clients on healthy eating, we try to prevent that grabbing for the fast food or ringing the takeaway, because we've got decision-making fatigue by doing exactly what you do, Tracy, which is planning the week.
Yeah.
Because then when you get home, especially if you go out to work and you get home late, you don't have to make a decision. You already know what you're eating.
Yeah, it does make a huge difference.
It really does make a huge difference. So that decision-making fatigue you get at the end of the day, it's real, isn't it? What should I watch on TV on the sofa? What should I eat? That is real. You have made so many decisions all day long.
Yeah, and obviously, no offence to you, Jamie, and to other people who don't have children, is what I was going to say. But when you have that on top of it, deciding basically for I don't know, probably a good 15, 16 years, deciding what your child's going to do, what school they're going to go to, what they're going to wear, what they're going to eat, what immunisations they're going to have, and then factoring a dog and everything else is just...
That's a lot of decisions.
It's a hell of a lot of decisions, and it's all resting on your shoulders. So many times I felt like, oh my God, it's literally all on my shoulders, and can I just not be a parent just for a day? Or not even, I just don't want an adult some days. I just want to let everybody else do it, because it's hard.
And I think sometimes that's why holidays can be so relaxing, because the amount of decisions we have to make is not zero, but it's severely reduced. And I also think that's why people subconsciously will like all-inclusive holidays where they're not going to do anything, or the itinerary is provided. And I think subconsciously some people will go towards those because they don't have to make any decisions. Here's the breakfast. Here's what you're going to do today, and here's your lunch and dinner. No decisions needed to be made. There's something really attractive about that, especially if in your everyday life you are currently having to make a lot of decisions, not just for yourself, but as Tracy said, for your family, for other people as well. It's exhausting, isn't it, quite frankly?
Can I share some more stats?
Share.
because these are just mind-blowing, absolutely mind-blowing.
Share away.
So, research by Barclays, I'm not really sure why Barclays is doing this research, but anyway, reveals that us Brits spend 2.5 hours each day deliberating over everyday choices, what to wear, what to eat, what to watch, things like that. But it gets even worse, Jamie. This one is just right. Aviva, the insurance people, found that individuals lose almost 43 nights sleep annually, that is, due to decision-related worries, which highlights the profound impact that decision-making is having on not only our mental health, obviously with the mental fatigue, but also on our physical health and well-being, because sleep's really important.
It's stressful.
I was mind-blown when
that is 43 nights, listeners. 43 nights.
I don't sleep well enough without losing 43. And there's so many nights that I would have stayed awake, meaning to sleep, or woken up in the middle of the night and be like fretting and trying to go through scenarios and bits and pieces to try and make a decision so I can go back to sleep. I know I am in that statistic. I have definitely lost sleep. And sometimes it's not, Jamie, it's not even important stuff. It's like, what colour shall I paint my office? Or where shall I go on holidays? Yeah, it's actually quite ridiculous.
So we need to help Tracy and yourselves recover those lost nights' sleep through worrying about decisions. I wanted to say, before we go any further, we are talking here about all sorts of decisions, aren't we? We're talking about decisions in your social life, which might be, where are you going to go? You're going to meet up with your friends. Where are you going to go? What cafe are you going to go to? So social decisions that may not seem that important, but actually they are making your decision-making abilities work, aren't they? And I don't know about you, Tracy, but I'm in some WhatsApp groups with some of my friends, and sometimes we've had 2,500 WhatsApps deciding what cafe to go to. Because I don't mind, you decide. I don't mind, you decide. Eventually, somebody decide, you know, and it becomes a big thing. So anything from that, from what to eat, decisions about your personal relationships, so your significant other, and then of course moving into more important decisions, which could be decisions at work, whether or not to change job, accept a job offer, decisions about aging parents and care, and all of those decisions, which, as I say, in quotation marks, more important, but potentially have more far-reaching consequences. Your decision has more far-reaching consequences.
They're more likely to impact your life, aren't they?
About rather than what cafe to go to. I wanted to explore why do some of us have difficulty making a decision? And like Tracy, I have difficulty making decisions. I don't lose sleep over them, though, I'm pleased to say, but I do find them difficult. And it's more than just being unsure, isn't it? It's more than just, well, I'm not sure where to go on holiday. It's a lot deeper than that. And I think, firstly, is we're worried about making the wrong choice. And I wanted to say here, because I've given it some thought, as I know Tracy has, is that even if it's unconscious, we've all got an outcome in our mind. So even if it was something that didn't seem that important, so I've decided on a Friday night I'm going to watch a film with my partner. We're going to have a nice evening on the sofa. And subconsciously, my outcome is that by the end of the evening, we've both tripped nicely over into the parasympathetic nervous system. We're feeling really relaxed. We've had some nice food. We've watched a nice film that we've enjoyed. We've talked about said film. And we go to bed ready to start the weekend in a nice, relaxed, happy, connected state. Well, all of a sudden then, that film becomes really important. Because if I choose the wrong film, my partner might get bored. She might end up scrolling on her phone, look at something that annoys her on social media, or maybe I do. Then we start getting agitated. Then we're talking over the film. Then I think, well, this evening isn't going as I planned. Anyway, it all spirals, doesn't it? By the time we go to bed, we're in the sympathetic nervous system. We're feeling a bit annoyed, aggravated. We haven't maybe connected that much. So what I'm saying is then a choice that maybe we thought wasn't that important becomes a little bit more important, but it's all about the outcome, isn't it? Every decision we make, there's an outcome that we're trying to achieve. And so we have fear of making the wrong choice. I go to the wrong cafe. My friend doesn't enjoy it. The coffee's rubbish. We don't have a good time. And that fear, I think, can sometimes, we don't want to make a mistake because we're wired to not make mistakes, aren't we? We don't want to make the wrong choice. We don't want to make a mistake. We don't want to get the undesirable outcome.
Yeah.
And so therefore we worry about making the decision. And maybe I then say, Tracy, you decide. Because if she picks the wrong cafe, it's her fault, isn't it? It's not my fault. We've gone to a rubbish cafe and had rubbish coffee.
I know your game now.
Now you know, Tracy, that's why we let you make the decisions. So I definitely think, fear of making the wrong decision, of then getting the wrong outcome, perceived wrong decision, I think it's a big one.
It is a big one. It really is a big one. And there's also the lack of self-trust.
Lack of self-trust.
The assumption, I should say, that you are going to make the wrong decision.
And I think, especially if you've perceived yourself to have made a wrong decision in the past, and of course we can debate whether or not there are that many wrong decisions, but have you made a decision that didn't turn out the way that you wanted? Because that's going to affect, isn't it, your confidence in making decisions. Because it's a skill, isn't it, decision making? And the less you use it, because you're worried and you're not trusting yourself, the less you use it and the less confident you feel. So it's a downward spiral, isn't it?
Yeah.
A skill that you need to polish. So I think lack of self-trust. And I think overthinking as well. We get that analysis paralysis. So you consider all the options and you consider all the consequences, all the ramifications, and it's just overload when you go down that road. We want to consider our decisions, some more than others, depending on how important they actually are. But we can just become overwhelmed by the choice, and then we can't decide anything. So it's definitely not just feeling a bit, unsure.
No.
It's deeper reasons why we might struggle to make decisions.
Yeah, and if you think about it, if you think back, I don't know, 10, 20, 30 years, there are so many more decisions that we can make now, aren't there? At one point, there were 4 TV channels.
Or 3.
Or 3. So it was one of those 3 or read a book.
Yeah.
So you didn't have the choice. The same with food, really. Takeaways and things like that. Back when I was a kid, they were kind of unheard of, actually. And if you did get them, it was maybe once a month or for a special occasion. So there just wasn't really much decision to be made. Whereas now, there are so many different platforms that you can watch TV on. You've got Sky, you've got Virgin, you've got Netflix, you've got all of these other ones. And then if you can't find anything on there's YouTube, or there's TikTok, or there's social media. There's so many different places that we can get entertainment from. So many different, you can even get a whole host of food delivered to your door now. So I think it's really exasperated the whole analysis paralysis, because it's like, I've got so many choices that I can make.
I loved reading when I was a kid, and there wasn't any online facility. You couldn't just go onto Audible and choose any book.
No.
The choice was what was in my mum's bookcase. That was that. So whatever book she had, I read, and I did. I read them all. And when my mum still got all the books, when I go back now, I think I've read them, but I'm not sure I should have been reading them really. But anyway, I read them all. And that took the choice away, because I could only read what was in the house. And I just don't really, because we can never go back in time and grow up again, can we, with all the options? But I wonder if, for us that have grown up, as you say, with less options, if it can be more overwhelming now. And I remember, there was, all these coffee shop chains. Coffee was, you just got a coffee.
Yeah.
If it was just a coffee, now you can have all these sorts of coffees, and it can be too much, can't it? Well, it can for me anyway.
Oh, absolutely.
Overwhelmed.
It's all the things, isn't it? I think, and maybe you've hit the nail on the head there, that because we've seen the before and the after, or the before and the current, maybe it is worse for our generation. I actually worked for one of the very first internet providers when I was 18. So before that, there wasn't the choice.
Yeah.
There also wasn't the choice of who to connect with on social media. I think I barely had a mobile phone, and a lot of my friends didn't. I was just lucky that my brother worked in an industry that he actually bought me my very first mobile phone. So we were more limited, and I do think maybe it's easier for the kids of today, or those who are younger than us, because they've never known any different. Whereas we have, and it's all of a sudden we've had these this plethora of choices to make. No wonder so many people kind of want to go back to simpler times.
Yeah, and also maybe feel overwhelmed. And I've got two things that have just come to my mind there. Is one, I'd be interested to know if we now all make more decisions than we used to do, because there are so many more decisions that we can make.
Yeah.
And also from anyone else that is our age listening, do you also feel a bit overwhelmed? I used to feel unreasonably annoyed, and I've got over it now, when the big coffee chains started coming and I'd go in and say, can I have a coffee? And they'd say, what coffee do you want? I used to get really angry. And this was just, give me a coffee. Is it just me, or does anyone else feel like that? Or is that just, you know?
Well, I don't drink coffee, but
okay.
So
I just want a coffee.
Maybe write in and let us know if it's just Jamie.
Is it just
I don't think it is just you. I think some people just
too many choices. I don't want to make another choice.
No.
Give me a coffee.
No, it's not even just one choice.
Oh,
what type of coffee do you want?
I know.
What type of milk do you want?
I know.
Do you want a large, medium, or a small?
Yeah.
The way around. Do you want this? Do you want a shot of this in it? Do you want syrups?
It goes on.
Too much.
One coffee I have, and I have the same coffee over and over again. I never try anything different. So I think lots of reasons for difficulty in making decisions that are more deep-rooted, as I said, than just feeling insecure.
Oh, 100%.
And unsure.
Yeah. And one you haven't actually touched on is if we are just generally in a state of stress or anxiety.
Yeah.
Because as you know, Jamie, when we're in that state, our minds are flooded with cortisol. We can't actually think straight.
No.
So it's even harder to then fathom out, working out the different choices to then make a decision. It's like there's another barrier in there altogether. And so many of us are walking around stressed. It's just adding to it, isn't it?
But don't worry, listeners, because we do have our top tips coming up.
We do have our
that will help you make decisions. So, as always, if this episode is resonating with you, worth sitting down and thinking about the deeper reasons why you might struggle making decisions, and also where do you struggle making decisions. As Tracy and I said at the top of the show, is it some people can make great decisions at work, no problem, they make decisions all day long and they get home, but in their relationship, social life, not so good. So have a think about that. Is it in all areas of your life, or do you just struggle in one or two? Because that'll also give you some useful insights as to the reasons why you struggle. You know, if you don't struggle at work, but you struggle at home, is that because you're more emotionally connected at home? And therefore, you bring your emotions more into those decisions and you think about people's feelings. And on that note, Tracy.
That's a very good point.
Gender differences.
Yeah. This is really, really interesting.
Yeah,
and I hadn't even thought about this. Me and Jamie had a little chat off air before we came on. And I hadn't even thought about it, that there would be a difference.
Yeah.
I mean, I should have done really, because I know that men are a lot more logical and we are more emotionally charged. But yeah.
Well, I just had a little research around this because I like to look at gender differences in a lot of our podcasts, and I just want to say it's never 100%, is it? It's just a generalisation that can appear. There's always going to be, you know, shades of grey, and it doesn't apply to all women and all men. We know that. Yeah. We are just saying there can be some, on the whole, some differences. So we've got social expectations and conditioning. So in some cultures, women are brought up to be more passive and to consider other people's feelings more when making decisions. So we go back to, where do you want to go for a coffee? Or where do you want to go? Because I want to make you happy. So you have the decision. So definitely that coming into play. And we've touched on this before, risk-taking behaviour. So especially in business, and I know there's statistics around this a lot, you know, men will generally be less risk adverse than women. So when it's work, as I say, or business, you tend to find men will take those risks, whereas women will tend to stay on the safer side, for sure.
Oh, 100%.
And then in relationships, women can be far more emotional. So if I had children, which I don't, I might get offered a new job, which was more money, but more time away from home. And women will often then consider the impact that would have of their being at home less, more so than men. But as I say, these are generalisations, listeners. We're not saying this is 100%. And, you know, as society progresses, another interesting topic, are these gender differences becoming less?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. That's another episode. So yes, definitely worth, I think, just exploring around. You might feel as a man you don't struggle so much with decisions that are more emotional, or you may feel as a woman that you do. So I think that was important to mention there.
Yeah, something now. This could just be my own personal experience. So again, I'm not tarnishing everyone with the same brush. But from my experience and from the men, not all of them, but the dads that I know, it tends to be that the mums, the women make the decisions for the kids, for the pets, for the general household. I don't think men have as many decisions to make. Because I think us women, dare I say it, take it on. Yeah, let us know. Because I know, obviously, big purchases, things like that, holidays, my husband will be completely involved with, and really, without sounding sexist, kind of he gets the final word. That's fine. In our relationship, it works. I don't have an issue with it. Maybe that's down to my social condition. Who knows? But I've always found that when it's come to either of the dogs that we've had and the kids, for the most part, the final say has always been me, and it's been kind of like it's been for me to decide on. Obviously, if I was going to like cut one of their limbs off or something, he may have something to say. But for the most part, I feel potentially, and do write in, let us know. I'm trying not to be sexist here. It's just my personal experience and from the people I know. But a lot of it's more on the women. And if, as an example, you were saying about taking or being offered a job with more money, there would be more contemplation from the man of finances and logistics rather than the emotional side of things. But it could just be my setup. Who knows?
Well, I think you're right, Tracy, and we want to hear from people, don't we? Because we absolutely want to hear different people's views and opinions. Tracy and I give our own views and opinions, and then we give our advice. I'm a qualified life coach, and Tracy is a qualified self-esteem coach. So we give our advice from a professional point of view, and we give our opinions from a personal point of view, and that's the way that the podcast flows.
Yeah, exactly. But as Jamie said, we're not always, nothing's set in stone, and different people work different ways. I know some females who are very, very logical. I know some men who are much more in touch with like dealing with children, looking after them. We are all different. So this is just the advice from our personal and professional experience.
And moving on to advice, I have a listener question. Ooh. So we've got Daryl.
Okay.
And listeners and viewers as well, please do follow us on our socials at Wellbeing Unwrapped, Facebook and Instagram currently, because we do preview the episode we are about to record, and we love to have your questions. So if you check out our socials, you will see our next episode coming up. Anyway, Daryl, I find myself second guessing decisions constantly. How can I trust myself to make the right choice, even when I'm not 100% sure? Ooh. Shall I go?
Yeah, you go for that one.
Okay, so I think, Daryl, it's important to say that at the end of the day, when you've gone through a process, and I'll come back to that in a minute, you have to just let it go. And also accept the fact that in a large amount of cases, is there a wrong decision? So Tracy and I spoke when we came on air. Obviously, anything that involves criminality or putting someone's life in danger, that is never going to be the right decision. So let's just move that to one side. But with other decisions, is there ever going to be really a wrong decision? There'll be another path you could have taken. And of course, you'll never know what would have happened had you chosen that one. So I think it's important to lay out your decision-making process, but at the end of that, Daryl, to just let it go and make the decision and then move on. And then if things change, you can make a different decision. And also to think you can only make a decision with the information that's available at the time. So it is not worth, and I've done this a lot, I think, oh God, oh, I'd made a terrible decision 10 years ago, a terrible decision. But I made a decision. I've got to be kind to myself with the information I had at the time and with the cards that were available to me at the time on the table. And I couldn't have done any different. And there is absolutely no point looking back saying, well, I wish I'd done this, I wish I'd done this. I did the best at the time. Decision-making process, Daryl. So I'm glad we've been asked this, because decision-making process, right? So I'm going to talk about, and then you don't mention, Daryl, if this is work or social, and the tip I'm about to give here, you wouldn't necessarily be doing with what book you're going to read next, but it's, of course, making a pros and cons list. So for your big decisions, especially work-related decisions, staple tip here, pros and cons. Write them down, look at it logically, make the decision one side. Tracy, anything else for
I'm not really sure what to add to that, to be fair, because you were
what, the pros and cons?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's a really pretty good idea. The other option that you have got is to explore. I mean, I would definitely try and whittle it down so you've only got a couple of options. But then maybe explore, if you took option A, how's that going to make life look? What difference is it going to be? This is obviously only, Jamie, for like the bigger decisions. Like, I don't know, like what location you're going to move to. Are you going to go and get a job at this place or that place? As we were saying, this isn't about choosing a book or which pub to go to on the weekend. This is slightly bigger issues. But you can explore the two options and think to yourself, okay, right, if I took that option, and kind of fast forward yourself like a year or two, and we'll say, right, okay, objectively, how is that going to potentially look? You're never going to know. None of us have got a crystal ball. Try not to allow the negative bias to come in too much. It's a default mechanism we have, but try not to. However, saying that, if you find one option is making you think more negative, that's your gut talking. So listen to it.
I think that's great. Because Daryl actually asked, yes, I find myself second guessing. So how can I trust myself even when I'm not 100% sure? And I think what we're saying, Daryl, is that if you go through a decision-making process, as I've just outlined and Tracy has outlined, then at the end of that, you've got to trust yourself. You've done what you could. You've thought about the decision, and then you've just got to let it go. Even if you're not 100% sure, make a decision, let it go, and move on. Because pretty much, as Tracy said earlier, there's no decision really that can't be reversed out of. Well, there's very few that can't actually be reversed out of. And as I say, is there a wrong decision?
Well,
you make it with the knowledge you have at the time, but back yourself, Daryl.
Yeah, and the thing is, the more you trust yourself, Daryl, the more you make the decision. And as Jamie said, then you just let it go and move on. It's like a muscle, and it's going to get stronger, and then it's going to become a little bit easier. The other thing that was just kind of coming to the forefront of my mind, I think it was maybe the anxiety episode we were talking about. Ask yourself, what's the worst that can happen?
What's the worst that can happen?
What is the worst that can happen if you make the wrong decision? If it's that bad, reverse back out of it, make the other decision. Unless we are obviously talking about something criminal.
Of course.
If, unfortunately, you're in the position that you've got to decide over someone's life support, 99% of the actual decisions, because as far as I'm concerned, committing the crime isn't a decision.
No, absolutely.
But yeah, in these kind of scenarios, the majority of the decisions they either really don't matter that much, like, it's disappointing if you choose the wrong pub or cafe, or you buy a book and don't like it. But the majority of them, they're either in that category, it really doesn't matter, or you can back out of it and you can change and go, okay, well, what can I learn from this? That wasn't right. Maybe you listened to somebody else's opinion and you should have trusted yourself, Daryl.
So, Daryl, I hope that's helpful. And talking about the decision-making process, Tracy, we just touched there on pros and cons.
Yes.
And you touched on you know, visualizing that outcome, thinking to yourself, you know, is this going to get me to where I want to be? And then outcomes are great, aren't they? You know, it's to think about, what do I want to achieve by making this decision? And that's always something, again, I talk about with the healthy eating, and we say the decision-making fatigue, and making that decision earlier in the week. You know, what's the outcome? You want to eat healthily, to lose some body fat, to feel better in yourself, etc. You build up the outcome, and then it makes it much easier to make those decisions at the beginning of the week, to spend the time planning it, because you've got the outcome firmly in your mind.
Exactly. Rather than leaving it to the last minute when you're hungry and you're tired and maybe stressed and lacking of time.
That's not going to take you towards your outcome.
It's not going to, is it? Well, exactly. As you were saying, that you have your outcome in advance. You know what it is you want. What decision do I need to make right now to make that happen? Well, your decision is you've got to start planning.
So pros and cons.
Visualizing the outcome. Visualizing it, and trust your gut.
And trust your gut. Now I've got a couple more. Okay, so I've got set a deadline. So this will help you, Tracy, with your sleepless nights. So when it's a bigger decision, because I hope you're not, you know, lying awake wondering about what book to read next. So when it's a bigger decision, give yourself a deadline. I mean, I work really well with deadlines. I don't know, they're not necessarily for everybody, because people can feel pressured. But you say, I'm going to make that decision within a day, within 2 days, within 3 days, whatever it might be. So self-enforced deadline, so it doesn't just go on and on and on. Because actually, you need to get on with your life, don't you? You need to live your life. And if you, in 24 hours, think, well, I've done everything I possibly could. I've done my pros and cons. I've done my what's the outcome. I've done my how will I feel when I achieve this. I've done everything. Well, then just make the decision. Because at some point, you just have to come down on one side and the other. And on that note, I want to add one more thing, Tracy, which is to sometimes coffee shop, limit your options.
Just makes it easy.
Sometimes there can just be too many, right?
Yeah, you can. Although I would say, as we were talking, we were talking off air before, trying to decide between 2 hotels that we have visited.
Yes.
And the pros and cons list's not working.
Okay.
Because the pros here and the pros here are different, but they're not of equal value. So I can't just say this one's got 10 pros and this one's got 5, because some of these are big whammy pros, and it is hard. So I think a deadline, also the visualizing of like, okay, does it really matter? I've been to both hotels, so I've had a good time at both. It's just you've got to set your deadline then, haven't you?
You've got to say,
actually, I'm just going to go for it. And worst case, have 2 holidays.
I love that advice. So I think that if it's a decision, as you say, what book to read, you know, you're on your WhatsApp chat, what cafe to go to. And I've actually done this lately in a couple of groups that I'm in, and I thought, oh gosh, I hope people don't think I've suddenly become really pushy in my. Did I tell you, Tracy, I was 50 recently? I don't know, maybe I never mentioned it. And I just thought, you know what, I'm going to say, we're going to go here, and we're going to meet at this time, and no one batted an eyelid. And I thought, well, I'm not aggressive anyway in the way that I message. And then I thought, well, just stop thinking about it. Anyway, making that decision quicker has freed up some time. So instead of, 25 messages between us, there was 2. And it was better. So I think with those smaller decisions, you've got other things to be getting on with. Make the decision and then leave it and move on. With the bigger decisions, you will want to apportion more time, but have a process rather than just spinning it round in your head. Like Tracy said, get it out, get it on paper, pros and cons, think it through, go for a walk, clear your head, set a deadline, narrow your options, and then move on and make that decision.
Yeah, and sometimes I was just thinking, actually, get to the point that you think you made a decision and maybe then sleep on it. So you're not being impulsive, you know that you're giving yourself time for anything else to pop up, but then have that deadline and be like, right, do you know what, I think I'm there, but it is a big decision. I'm going to sleep on it, and then in the morning, unless I've had some real change of heart, that's what I'm going with.
Yeah.
And it makes such a difference, because you do literally clear a pathway in your mind. And I bet all the people in that group were just like, thank God.
I think
Thank God. Because they didn't have, you took it away from them in a nice way. You took it away from them. It wasn't life changing for them. So why should it take up so much time and effort?
And it freed us all up too.
Exactly. And then you knew what you were doing.
Yeah. Decision made.
Decision made. It's really quite powerful.
Yes, and there is power in making a decision. I also think it's important to not be too rigid and inflexible. So I certainly think we may have all met people like this, especially in the workplace. They tend to be a bit older because that's why they are like the way they are, that maybe have made some decisions that haven't worked out too well in their earlier career, and then they're too frightened to try something new. So when staff come to them and say, we could try this, we could try that, their decision making is always, I'm just going to do the same thing that I've always done because I'm too nervous to step outside of those parameters. And sometimes, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I think you've got to be mindful that you don't become, too rigid and too inflexible. I always go to this cafe. I'm never going to go to another cafe. Because it can just make you a bit not fun. So it's good to try new things and it's make the decisions still using those processes, but maybe don't always do the same thing that you've always done. I just wanted to say that.
Variety is the spice of life.
Variety is the spice of life.
Do we have any other questions?
We do have some questions. So we have had Annie. Annie, and she says, now this is a good one.
Okay.
And we haven't really touched on this very much. I struggle with making relationship decisions, whether it's moving forward or letting go. Any advice for finding clarity? Now, Annie, let me tell you this. I had a boyfriend once, and he really, wasn't a great relationship. And I did I think and I did. My glasses aren't on straight, Annie, talking about this. And I did a pros and cons list. Now, I didn't find that very helpful in affairs of the heart, as my
it's too logical.
It was too logical.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure whether I would advise a pros and cons list. Now, I'm going to say something here, Annie, that Tracy may disagree with, or some people may just not find that logical. But I think in affairs of the heart, I think you should go with your gut. Because it always knows. And my gut knew, which is why I was thinking about making a pros and cons list, because let's be frank, if you're at that stage where you're writing down on a notepad the pros and cons of the relationship you're in, chances are you probably shouldn't be in it. So in matters of love, I think your gut always knows, Annie. But I do understand when you say you struggle with making decisions, and you quantify that by saying whether it's moving forward and letting go. So you're talking about leaving a relationship. And I hear you, and I think there's lots of reasons maybe behind that, Annie, that might be worth exploring, e.g. Being on your own. That could be a big one. And ultimately, we were talking about not being able to reverse our decisions, but of course, with some people, once you've entered the relationship, there is no going back. Because some people will say, well, I'm sorry, but you've hurt me so much. You can't dump me one day and then come back 2 weeks later. That's it. It's done. So you think to yourself, gosh, well, there is some finality here. If I do end this relationship, especially if you live together, you're more committed, you can't then just drop back into their lives, can you? What are their families going to say? Their friends? You'd probably be a bit persona non grata. So you absolutely want to make sure it is the right decision. So I understand your hesitancy there, but gut instinct all the time, and just believe there's something better around the corner.
Just the question. Now, viewers, listeners, we're obviously not in the position for actually giving professional relationship advice. As we said earlier, this is our personal and professional experiences. Neither of us are relationship coaches or therapists in that sense, but just listening to the question, Annie, just made me think shouldn't be in it, shouldn't be in the relationship. Now, that's not to say that it's easy to leave. It's also not to say get out now, obviously, unless there's any kind of violence involved. But the fact, Annie, that you are trying to decide means you're not happy. And if you're not happy, we get one life. I do think you need to sit down and not necessarily pros and cons, but maybe journal it out. What is it that you're unhappy about? If it's something that's maybe really easily fixed, maybe dirty socks and underwear on the floor don't make it into the washing bin, things that don't get into the dishwasher. If it's silly things like that, then you can absolutely have a conversation and say, look, I'm really not happy. I really need you to address these things. If they're bigger things, which Jamie, I'm picking up from this question, is it something that's that you can get over? Are the issues completely insurmountable? Has there been some kind of betrayal that you just cannot get over? So I do think you need to sit down and think with a real clear head. And it's really hard because obviously if you then are like you had to do, you're branching out on your own, you're a change of living circumstances, if finances come into it, maybe your children come into it. It's not a decision to be made lightly, but I don't think logic should win. It shouldn't be, well, I don't have the money, or the kids won't like me, or whatever. I think it's really, you've got to do a bit of soul searching, Annie. But yeah, just the question says to me, like as an example, I would never say that question because I'm in a happy, committed, long-term relationship. I don't have a decision to make because I'm not unhappy. The fact that you're unhappy, Annie, suggests that, yeah, something needs to change. Does it need to be something that's that big? Potentially. I hope that helps.
I thought that was great. And I think you're right. You know, if you're asking the question in the relationship context, it's often because there really isn't something that is right.
There's something big that maybe can't come back. Obviously, we can only surmise what that could be.
And as I said, you know, I'm a big believer in gut instinct, which is not going to be everyone's bag. And of course, it's not evidence-based decision making. But it's not ever steered me wrong. And when I haven't listened to my gut, it's always been wrong. I'll tell you a little very brief story. I had a boyfriend. I met him on a dating site. Anyway, from very, very early on, not a boyfriend, very, very early on, he's a personal trainer, actually. I thought, there's something not right here. We didn't live together. I thought, he's seeing other women. He's seeing other women. There was all these, nothing concrete, nothing evidence-based. But there were signs to me, and I just thought that he was. And when I'd say it to my friends, they'd say, well, there's no evidence. You don't know there is. Anyway, I knew he was. Knew it. And I'd see him, and I'd say, oh, you're seeing other people, and he'd call me crazy. You're crazy. Crazy woman, all this. One of the worst years in my life in terms of relationship, really emotionally up and down, all the rest of it. Anyway, there was another profile on this dating site, which didn't have a picture on it. It just had a picture of whatever it was. And for some reason, that had come up to me, and I thought, I think that's him, right? And I could see him contacting other women and, you know, giving them little, or whatever it was on the site, hearts or whatever. And I thought, I think that is him. And I say to him, I think that's you, blah, 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 you've got another profile. In the end, it was so terrible. I thought I was going absolutely mad because he would say to me, you are mad. I took the email off this profile and I had to pay, and I found out who the email address belonged to. Guess who it belonged to?
God.
Bloody him.
Why didn't you just admit it, though?
I messaged him and I said whatever we can imagine. And he came back to me and said, don't ever contact me again. Leave me and my family alone. Don't ever contact me again. I thought, absolutely 1 year of my life.
Oh, I wonder what you were going to say then. Sorry, those sentences really merged.
Indeed. Anyway, let's move on there. But the point of it is that I knew.
Yeah.
And I knew from the very beginning.
I've been in a similar situation. And you do, you just, your gut instinct says, even if it's not what's wrong, it's always something's wrong.
Yeah.
So you may not be able to pinpoint, oh, he's doing this or she's doing this. Something's not wrong. Something's not wrong. So something's not right. Something is wrong here that needs addressing. Yeah, you just
trust your gut. In matters of love, especially, Annie, trust your gut because you deserve better.
Yeah.
And if for a period of time, or even if forever you're on your own, better than being with the wrong person.
Yeah.
You're on your own, you do what you like, lovely. You can have as many cats as you like, love cats, you get loads of cats. You can crochet, you can have flowers. I mean, you know, it's really, really not that bad.
I don't like cats.
Right, so Tracy.
Yes.
I mean, we've got some actionable tips, haven't we?
We have got some. I mean, I've already shared some of them.
Yeah, well, I feel we should collate them all.
We should collate them
in a nice,
go back over
you know, sensible order for people. Can I start with that?
Well, always, yeah.
Okay.
See, making decisions.
Making decisions. So the first thing I would say is to think to yourself, what decisions am I struggling with? Social, friends, relationship, or work?
Mm-hmm.
Give it a thought and establish what that is.
Yeah.
If they are work decisions, let's give people some tips around work decision. Pros and cons list.
Yes.
100% work decision.
Yeah.
Tracy.
I would journal out the impact that it's having on not just you, but on your nearest and dearest.
Yeah.
And again, you're making a decision. If you were to make this decision, what impact could that have?
Yeah.
Kind of, it does tie into the pros and cons.
It does. It's kind of an expanded pros and cons list. So pros and cons to you personally in a career fashion, and then pros and cons how they would fall out to your family and your wider life. You know, do you have less social time? Do you have less time to go to the gym and look after yourself? You know, all of those pros and cons.
Yeah.
Have a look at them.
Yeah, because it can't always be just about money.
Oh gosh, no.
It really can't.
No.
I mean, there was a time we made the decisions together. There was a time that
not me and Tracy, listeners, my husband.
He was working a full-time job, and then he was doing some private work on the side, and then he got a job with a private limousine company. So when he wasn't fixing other cars, he was driving Hindus and stuff up to London and everything, coming in the early hours, all to make the money.
Gosh.
It is what it is. The kids were really little, and looking back, we sometimes think financially it got us to where we are now, but he missed out on some time with the kids. So it's hard. I mean, if you really need the money, we were kind of saving to make things better and so that we have more holidays. We'll be right, we'll be wrong, who knows? But I think you have to factor everything in.
Yeah.
Not just, it's not all about the money. Because if you're making all this money and you haven't got time to enjoy it, what's the point?
No. And I think often sometimes when you're just focused on the one outcome, I'm going to get more money, you miss the other, the impact on other factors, and then you maybe take the new job and a year down the line, you think, oh my goodness, this wasn't what I thought. So pros and cons, and then the wider reach. I think it's really important with a work-based decision, and that will be really helpful.
Yeah.
Moving on to social and personal, though.
Yeah.
We maybe don't have a pros and cons list as to what book to read. Tracy's don't talk to Tracy about books with a pros and cons list. You can have a pros and cons list for your book, Tracy.
Yeah, that's very hard to do with a book.
I think I just feel you may end up reading very little.
Yeah.
If you pro and con every book.
Yeah, I think you've got to maybe just read
them and
read the back. If it sounds interesting, give it a go. Even better if you find a book and you think it sounds okay, and maybe you're toying up between two, then have a word with some friends. And if they've read it and they think they're great, then maybe go. But you've got to remember that people have different choices.
People have different taste.
They do. So
but you can all stop reading it.
Yes, and that's exactly what I ended up doing because I couldn't decide. I ended up borrowing a selection of books off of my mother-in-law, picked the one I thought was okay, took it on holiday, read a bit, didn't read a load, and it's going back to her. I don't actually think that she read very much of it because it's quite pristine, the book, so I think she may have had the same issue.
She should have been the giveaway.
Yeah.
wasn't well thumbed pages.
No, it wasn't at all. Did it affect my holiday? Well, in comparison to the previous holiday, when I had been like this with a book that I just couldn't put down, there was a change. Did it ruin my holiday? No, because I just people watched and listened to some music and just chilled out. Did it really matter? No, but I honestly, viewers and listeners, I agonised for like days. Even at the airport, I knew, so this is the thing, which is where I should have gone with my gut. I knew that book was not right, but it was kind of like, I can't choose what to buy. I'm not liking anyone else's suggestions.
Right.
This book is the best of the bunch. I took it, but even at the airport, Jamie, I was looking through, reading the backs of the books. So really, had I paid attention, I already knew that book wasn't for me.
What you did there, Tracy, was you settled for anything because you wanted something. I think that's quite important relationship advice there.
Yeah.
You just picked someone because you thought, oh, well, I better be with someone. But all the while you were still looking around at other people, and then you thought, oh, well, I'll just settle for this, and then it never works out.
No.
That's what you did there.
I did.
That book.
Yeah. Did.
So anyway, talking about social and relationship actionable tips.
Yes.
Tracy, do you want to?
Yeah. So, sociable, if we're just talking about where to go for the night, what pubs to go to, what drink to have, cafes, things like that. Okay, so we're going to talk like kind of like everyday sort of things. Does it really matter? It's actually more important the people you're with.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I think that's really important to remember. It doesn't really matter, and unless this is someone, maybe you've got, like I've got some family that live the other side of the world. If they were coming back and I was seeing them, then it would be more of a big deal because I'd be like, I only get to do this like once every 5 years or something. It's a bigger deal. If it's people that you may see weekly or monthly or at least multiple times a year, try somewhere different. If it doesn't work out, you've learned from it.
So I think what you're saying is put it in perspective.
Yes.
When it's those sorts of decisions, social decisions or social within your relationship, just put it in perspective because actually, and then say to someone, so I talked about the film earlier, say to your partner, well, if it's a bad film, we'll both decide it's a bad film. We'll turn it off. We'll put on an old favourite or we'll turn it off and we'll have a conversation.
Yeah.
If you go to the cafe and the food isn't that great, you're still together, like Tracy said. You're still there, you still have a good time, laugh about it.
Yeah.
But I think, put those decisions in perspective. You don't want to spend all day making them. Try to let that go a little bit. It doesn't really matter, and you've got other things to be focusing on.
Now I've got kind of a double-edged tip to the back of that. Part of me is thinking, let someone else make the decision.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so take it away from you so you don't have to, a bit like you did for your friends.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a life-changing decision, so just let someone else do it. However, on the back of that, if you always let other people decide, it actually does something to our minds, and we actually do start to wire in that our choices can't be trusted, that our instincts can't be trusted. And if this is more for if somebody is being a little bit overpowering and dominating, it can sort of say to you that your opinions don't matter. So if you're going to let other people make a decision, don't let them do it all the time. If you do want to if there's somewhere that you actually want to go to, but you're trying to be a people pleaser, speak up.
I think it's a really good opportunity, those smaller decisions, to start flexing your decision-making muscles. To make decisions that, as Tracy said, aren't really the end of the world if they don't pan out. But it's like weight training, isn't it? The more you do it, the bigger the muscle grows. So you want to, I made a decision, I've made another decision, I've made another one. And you feel more confident in your decision-making ability, which will then bleed into the other areas of your life. So don't just let other people make it all the time. Take the responsibility and make those decisions yourself. Be more decisive what movie to watch, what book to read. You made a decision. All right, didn't work out so well. You make another decision. And you will feel more confident. And like Tracy said, that feeds into your self-esteem. It does. Your trust in yourself. And make those decisions.
And then statistically, all of those decisions you make are not all going to pan out the way
No,
that you hope.
they're absolutely not.
But don't focus on the ones that didn't work out.
Yeah.
Don't solely focus on them. Make sure that you are focusing on the fact that, okay, 8 out of 10 decisions I've made have been absolutely fine.
Good decisions.
Those 2 last places we went to, I wouldn't go to again. Well, that's actually just helped you for the future.
Yeah.
You've whittled down
Exactly
that you're not going to go there because you've learned from it.
Yeah. And then finally, relationship and the social decisions are a bit more important. And I know I love we've got the sleep, the walking, and the journaling. Which one do you want to go over? Journaling. I mean, good way for those decisions, right?
Yeah, it gets your thoughts out onto paper, which frees up a little bit of space. And quite often I find, I don't journal half as much as I should, but I quite often find that as I'm writing things, I can almost evaluate myself and think, oh, I hadn't realised, and I have all these realisations. And then before you know it, you're kind of writing your decision, and then you can look back and go, I didn't actually realise. And sometimes with the pros and cons and everything else, sometimes you can miss things that are really, really important. The feeling side of things, you can miss that. When you're writing it, you're getting all of your thoughts and your emotions and thought processes and that stuff out onto paper, and it can give you real clarity.
Yeah. I think that's great. And alongside that, I mean, I very much think walking is quite similar to journaling, isn't it? Because as you're walking, you're journaling in your mind, although nothing takes the place of actually writing your thoughts down. But, you know, going for a really good long walk, and then, like you said, Tracy, sleeping on it.
Yeah.
Massive.
Yeah.
Do you still feel the same in the morning?
Yeah.
Generally, it's a good time to check in with yourself upon waking.
Yeah.
Not at the end of the day when you've got those 35,000 decisions crammed in your head.
No.
Wake up. What do you want to do?
Yeah, exactly.
Go with that.
Yeah. And I'm going to throw in another one. Something that Paul, my husband, he says quite a lot is if it's something that you're really, really close to and it's a real issue and you're really struggling with it, step away. Go do something else. So you can use that. You can go for your walk.
Yeah.
Don't go for your walk with the intention, I'm going to fathom this out and make a decision. Just go for a walk or go in the shower or go and do a workout or something completely unrelated. Decide you're just going to completely take that out of your mind, and then you'll find the answer will come.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So there you have it. We've got actionable tips. If it's work or a big momentous decision, you've got your pros and cons, expanding them out. If it's relationship social but quite impactful, you've got your journaling, your walking and sleeping on it. And if they are little everyday decisions that don't really have the far-reaching consequences, make them and let it go and flex those decision-making muscles.
And overall, trust your gut.
Trust your gut.
Trust your gut and trust in your instincts, because the more you trust, it will just become easier.
It will.
I've got one more. I know we've just summed up, but there's just something that extra I want to share. So, as you'll know, Jamie, I recently attended Tony Robbins' Unleash the Power Within. Phenomenal. Well, one of the things he actually got us to do, because he even recognises that people do struggle to trust themselves with making decisions, and because we have this negative bias wired into us, we can often just focus in on the, I made that decision, shouldn't have done that. I did that wrong as well. I wish I hadn't have done that. And it's really, really easy just to find more evidence of where you messed up. Now, this is really good for confidence boosting and enabling you to trust your gut. Is just take some time and think back. And sometimes it can be take a little while for you to think of things, but think back to some decisions that you have made that have panned out. Because it will. You can say, like one of mine was an example, obviously, I shared with you earlier, with getting married. I had the choice. Do I say yes? Do I say no? And obviously, you're never going to know what the alternative could have led to. But I'm now in a position, I've been married nearly 24 years. I'm very happy. We've got kids, a dog. We live in a lovely place. And that was all made possible from that decision. So as far as I'm concerned, I made a good decision there. And as I say, Jamie, that can just really help you boost your confidence and say, see, I don't always mess up. So who's to say that the next decision I make is going to be the wrong decision? So I hope that just kind of helps, just that little extra, just to boost your confidence and get you on the track of making the decisions.
Well, I think that's it. And on that note, listen, thank you so much for joining us for this episode. Don't forget you can follow us on Spotify and on YouTube now. So we're on the 2 platforms. You can follow us on social media, or you can email us.
Yes.
At Wellbeing Unwrapped.
At gmail.com.
At gmail.com.
Yeah.
So if you've got any questions about future episodes that you see that we are going to be recording, please do send them in, because we absolutely love to hear from you. Well, Tracy, another cracking episode.
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed
been a really
that.
Good one, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm glad we decided.
we decided to do this episode, and we'll see you on the next one.
Yeah. Stay tuned.
Take care, viewers.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Wellbeing Unwrapped. If you found this episode helpful today, please subscribe, leave a review and share it with anyone you think might benefit.
Yes, Jamie, the more reviews we get, the more people we can reach and help with our podcast.
And don't forget to reach out to us at wellbeingunwrapped@gmail.com with your feedback and any questions you may have for our next episode.